Hello and welcome everyone to Rapture for the Overcomers ministry. Hope you're all doing well, brethren. This is Richard in the UK, and obviously we are looking for what's taking place in the world right now and still looking for the pre-tribulation rapture. And this ministry is all about the rapture, the timing of the rapture and world events, and how they fit into what Scripture tells us about the pre-tribulation rapture. And today's message is about Rapture D-Day and the meeting between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, which is to take place tomorrow at the White House. And of course, many people who have been waiting for the rapture, myself included, and many of you that are listening to this message who are part of this ministry, brethren. Well, my message today is stay strong, stay faithful, and understand the dynamics of what is taking place right now. And there's much that I want to share with you in this message today. And one of the key things is this, that we must understand that the harpazo, the catching away, takes place at a time when the bride is under threat, when the disciples of the Lord Jesus Christ are under threat. And this is precisely the time that we're seeing and we're living in right now, isn't it? We are under such pressure and threat in this world. And that's why, of course, many are hoping and praying, and we're on the 23rd, 24th of September, hoping and praying that this was the time of our departure on the Feast of Trumpets. And I'm not going to go too much into those details. What I want to say is that we're still in that season. I personally believe that we're still in that season. We're still in a very high watch season. And I'm going to explain why shortly. So don't lose hope. Don't lose confidence. And we must understand that this is a spiritual war that we're engaged in, brethren. It is a spiritual war. And right now, the conflict between Satan, the devil, and Jesus Christ, Almighty God, is extremely severe. It's extremely hot. There is spiritual battles going on around us in the atmosphere. And of course, when it goes on in the heavenlies, it will manifest on the earth. And we are seeing a spiritual warfare which is beyond anything we've ever seen before. And that's the reality. So what can we make of that? Well, it should alert us and teach us, brethren, that we are living in these end times. And we're living at a time which the Bible teaches about, that the harpazo, the rapture, will take place at a time when everything is ramping up, when the spiritual warfare is off the charts. And that's what we're seeing right now. And so I just hope, firstly, that everybody's well, that you're staying faithful, staying strong. Do not just say, well, there we are, another season's passed. I'm not going to watch now. I'm just going to forget about the rapture and not look. Don't do that. Stay alert, stay focused, because we are still living in these remarkable times. And, you know, there's an awful lot that is still going on right now. And we must understand that the rapture will take place at a time when we are living in these incredible moments in history. And this is all coming together. We're still in this season. The window of opportunity is still there as I see it. And what we must understand is that the spiritual warfare was manifested at the United Nations in the last week or two. The attacks on Israel, we must focus on this. You must get the understanding, the hatred, the loathing of Israel, the blame that was poured out from so many of these countries. I watched several of these speeches over the course of these United Nations get-together, as it were, this 80th General Assembly. And so many of the world leaders were hostile, aggressive, anti-Semitic in their rhetoric, in their behaviour. It was quite shocking to witness, disgusting, appalling. Anti-Semitism off the charts, attack on Jews, attack on Israel, claiming Israel were committing genocide in Gaza. Nonsense. Claiming Israel were creating a famine and blaming Israel for the lack of humanitarian aid and food to be distributed within the Gaza Strip. Nonsense, lies, all of it, lies, lies, lies. And you need to understand that. If you believe the mainstream media narrative, then you're going to be way off the truth. You really are going to be way off. But I'm persuaded that those of you that come to this ministry, because you've been coming for a long time, and because you're of a similar mind to myself, the same mind, same understanding, that you know the truth, that Israel is being attacked on every level, at every corner, in every way possible. They are demonizing Israel. They are bullying Israel. They are intimidating Israel. The whole world, it seems, practically has turned against Israel. And of course, that's exactly what the Bible says will happen in the last days, doesn't it? And so we mustn't be surprised. But I'm just trying to set out, firstly, the spiritual climate that we're in. We are in a spiritual war which is raging like never before, I don't think, in the history of the world. That's where we're at right now. We must understand that. And even in this country, in the UK, we're seeing it now in other ways manifested. This digital ID that they're bringing out. Oh yeah, they're planning now the digital ID. It's here. They're preparing for it. They want to make it mandatory, and it will control people. It will affect every area of their lives. This is the control that we're seeing. This is the squeeze that we're being put on. And, in biblical history terms, it's a bit like, isn't it, when Moses was leading the children of Israel away from Pharaoh and toward the Red Sea. And do you remember they got to the very edge of the waters of the Red Sea, and they could hear, the Israelites started to panic, didn't they? Because they could hear the noise and the thunderings of Pharaoh's army with all his chariots and men of war and on horseback and so on. And they feared. And then Moses said to the children of Israel, he said, "Today the Lord will be your deliverance. Do not fear, because the Lord will deliver you." And of course we know the story, how the Red Sea parted and the Israelites proceeded across it on dry ground. And we're coming to that crucial point now. And one of the things I want to share is this, that many people are now writing off this year and saying, well, no, we've got to wait until next year, 2026, Feast of Trumpets 2026. And I would just say to you, if that's your mindset, because there are people saying that, I would just, a message of caution, really. The intensity, you see, this is what's got me so far this last couple of weeks, brethren, is the intensity that's going on in the world, in geopolitical circles. There are meetings going on right now as I'm speaking, meetings going on in New York, in Washington. They've been going on all weekend, okay? And it's 12:30 Sunday afternoon here in the UK. These meetings are going on. There's developments taking place. I'm getting news reports all the time about what's going on. And believe you me, the political shenanigans, political manoeuvring, political debates, political planning, the diplomacy that's going on, the pushing and shoving, the intimidation, it is off the Richter scale right now. And Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu in particular is stuck right in the middle of this. And so this is why this is a D-Day time for the rapture. Trump and Netanyahu are having this meeting tomorrow, Monday, at the White House. And this is absolutely crucial. Okay? Crucial to whether there's a chance for the rapture this year. I'm going to go as far as saying that. A bit like D-Day, if you remember anything about the Second World War, Destination Day, the Allies there, ready to cross into Normandy, into France. And it could have gone horribly wrong. And it did for sadly, many American soldiers on the beaches of Omaha who got into terrible difficulties there. And they had to ascend this great big rock, and it was heavily fortified by the Germans. And many Americans lost their lives, which was extremely sad. But on the end of that day of D-Day, which started at dawn, by the end of that day, the Allies had got a foothold in northern France. And it came to the situation where they liberated Nazi Germany. They liberated the Europeans, French, from Nazi Germany, I should say. And so it's a bit like that, D-Day. Where do we go? It's our D-Day for the rapture for this year. That's how I see it. This is coming tomorrow. Will give us a clear indication, I have no doubt about it, a clear indication of whether there's a strong chance for the rapture in the coming days. Okay, and I'll explain why. So it's a D-Day, it's a Rapture D-Day, and it may be that all this intensity in the geopolitical world, with the drama in politics at the moment, and all this crying out for a two-state solution, crying out for an independent Palestinian state, crying out for an end to the war in Gaza, it could be, we've seen it before, that it just fizzles bit by bit and dampens down, and it just gets delayed and kicked back into 2026. That could happen. But there's something about the intensity now which I've never witnessed before. And I personally believe that we are on the threshold of something major. I do believe that it's very, very possible. And the reason I say that is because one of the things I've pointed out for a long time now, in fairness, is Donald Trump and what's going on behind the scenes with Donald Trump. And I've always said that watch Trump. Watch Trump's moves. Watch what Donald Trump is going to do. And it struck me the other day on Thursday when he powerfully said, almost aggressively said, that there's no way I will let it happen for Israel to annex any more of the territory of the ancient lands of Judea and Samaria. He won't allow for annexation. And he made it very clear. And some people, I know Amir Safati put up on his post that he was pressured to do it by the Arab leaders. He had that meeting on the Tuesday or Wednesday, was it, with the Arabs, and they said that he was pressured into just that concession. No. The tone of Trump was different. You're going to see a different Donald Trump in the coming days. You know, this is someone who is a deceiver, and he is going to show a different side to his character. That is coming, I believe. And he was adamant, and he was almost aggressive in his way of saying there's no way I'm going to allow Israel to do that. So much for being a protector and supporter of Israel. I've always said he's going to betray Israel. I've always said he's going to stab Israel in the back. And now we're starting to see the mask falling off. And so this is where it's headed. And, so he's not going to allow annexation. And that won't change in my view. He's going to stick to that. And now, of course, he's brought out his 21 points of peace. So that hasn't happened overnight, magically. No, it's something that they've been working on, as we've said here, for many years. They've been working on this. This is all structured. And what we're going to find out now in this meeting with Netanyahu is what Netanyahu's response is going to be. This is what it's all about. Is Netanyahu going to cave in? Is Netanyahu going to resist? Is Netanyahu going to buy for time, play for time? And how aggressively is Trump going to assert his peace plan upon Netanyahu? Because this 21-point peace plan is very different to what Netanyahu has publicly spoken and publicly said that he will accept for the state of Israel. Now, with that in mind, some breaking news this morning. Okay. Well, we know about the 20. I'm going to go through a little bit about the 21 points of the hostage deal. This is to do with a ceasefire in Gaza and the hostage deal. That's part of the 21-point plan that Donald Trump has now come out with. But there's more to it, significantly more to it. But this is an interesting bit of information that's come out today. Quote, Hamas is ready to positively and responsibly consider any proposal that arrives from the mediators, provided that such a proposal protects the national rights of the Palestinians. End of quote. The terror group said in a statement. You see, this 21-point plan that Trump is now introducing, it doesn't favour Israel. It doesn't support Israel at all. Okay, Hamas made similar statements on Friday. Okay, after Israeli newspaper Haaretz cited sources saying Hamas had agreed in principle to release all the Israeli hostages it holds in return for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners and the gradual withdrawal of Israeli troops under Trump's plan. You see, let's go through this. Trump's plan is to get a ceasefire done as quickly as possible. It's to release the 48 remaining hostages, Israeli hostages. But it's also to give amnesty to Hamas. In other words, to let Hamas off the hook. In other words, to allow Hamas to escape judgment and escape being destroyed by Israel. And it's also part of the plan is to get Israel to gradually withdraw their forces from the Gaza Strip. You see? And then we go on. This Trump plan is against Israel. Make no mistake about it. Okay. I'm going to read on there. It says, according to the Qatari Al Arabi channel, Arab states have made amendments to the US initiative aimed at ending the war in the Gaza Strip. The revised version is expected to be presented to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu by Trump during their upcoming meeting on Monday. This meeting is phenomenally important. I cannot express to you the significance of this meeting, and I'll tell you why. Because it's Rapture D-Day. It will tell us where we're going and the time scale. Those people who are saying there's no chance of a rapture now, pay attention. Pay attention. This is not over. Details of the Trump hostage deal proposal. Here we go. While details of the revisions made by Arab states are yet to be revealed, so what else have they put in it? The US proposal calls for the release of all 48 remaining hostages, which we spoke about, within the first 48 hours of the deal taking effect. In exchange, Israel would halt major combat operations in Gaza and begin phased withdrawals from certain areas of the Strip. See, that's what this Trump plan is all about. It's about taking the IDF, out of the Gaza Strip and then replacing them with some kind of Arab US military force to govern the Gaza Strip and to make sure that Hamas are demilitarized. But this isn't the defeat of Hamas. This doesn't call for the defeat of Hamas as such. Not straight away. The proposal also envisaged amnesty for Hamas leaders, they get away with it, who would be granted assurances that they would not be targeted during the ceasefire. Oh, that's it, protect the murderers. Why don't you, Trump? Why don't you protect the leaders of Hamas who perpetrated the violence of October the 7th? That's it, Trump. Make a plan to protect them. You know, you need to see through Donald Trump, otherwise you're never going to understand what's going on. Okay, here we go. And then it says, in addition, it seeks to launch, this ceasefire deal, this 21-point plan, to launch internationally backed discussions on the establishment of a Palestinian state as part of a broader post-war framework. So this plan has information and proposals about the creation of a Palestinian state. Did you hear me? That should send shockwaves through every one of us. And make no mistake about it, Trump has come out and said that he is going to get this deal done. He is going to complete this deal. He's going to force it through. However long it takes, he said, I'm going to get it done. This doesn't seem like, to me, something which is going to take another 12 months. Remember, the rapture is linked. You have to get this. The rapture is linked to the timing of the deal being signed, to this ceasefire deal, to the peace plan which is going to come. And it's going to be part of a greater peace plan, an expansion of the Abraham Accords. But anything which talks about the creation of the Palestinian state and the division of the land of Israel, that is significant news. It's what we've been talking about for years on this ministry. That's the center point of where we go from here. That's what it's all about. When they all come against Israel, as they have done at the UN, saying peace and safety, peace and safety. What does Paul say? Then sudden destruction. And it's hard to imagine that the peace and safety right now, which was spoken in the United Nations this last 2 weeks, it's very difficult right now to think that that's not the peace and security, peace and safety that the Apostle Paul was referring to. How on earth are they going to say it more next year? It doesn't seem feasible. Next September, they're going to wait again and say peace and safety. Well, nobody's going to take it seriously. But they've said it so many times. You're talking over hundreds of times they've said it. Every time you put it on, the speaker, they're talking peace and security. So we must get the understanding that we are still in a high watch situation, brethren. Do not take your focus off the Lord Jesus Christ. Do not stop watching and praying to be delivered. Do not stop making sure that your garments are clean and holy and pure without sin, because we are not through this time by any means. And at the moment, Trump is ratcheting things up. Trump is pushing the agenda. Now, we could get to the end of the meeting tomorrow, D-Day as I call it, and Trump and Netanyahu might make some concessions, and it might all simmer down, and they might not do anything, and there might not be a ceasefire, and everything might quieten down. And then everything over the winter might start quieting down. But that's hard to see right now. That is very difficult to see right now because of what Trump is doing. And you can see in his attitude, you can see his determination to get this done. It's all over what he's saying. And he's pushing. And he's going to, if he has to, he's going to confront Netanyahu. And Netanyahu is now in a very, very difficult place. And we'll come to that in a minute. Okay, so we talked about they're going to try to establish a Palestinian state as part of this framework, this 21-point peace agreement that Trump is trying to push through. Reconstruction funding from Arab states and the wider international community would also be provided, but only under conditions that include security guarantees and international monitoring of aid distribution. And then it goes on and talks about, here we are. Okay, Trump is expected to personally urge, there you are, the pressure game that Trump is now exerting, to urge Netanyahu to accept the modifications, presenting the plan as a historic opportunity. Historic opportunity. That seems to me a bit like the Abraham Accords. To end the war while restoring American influence in the region, because Trump's going to try and establish American influence and call for a united military or peacekeeping organization. Now listen to this. It says, Netanyahu's refusal to respond to Trump's initiative is troubling. That's a quote from the forum. Said, the hostages forum warns against another attempt at sabotage by Netanyahu. So the hostages forum are also putting pressure on Netanyahu. They're saying, don't stop what Trump's doing. Allow Trump's ceasefire deal so we can get our hostages back. Doesn't matter about the greater picture. Just get the hostages back. And then it goes on to say, so the hostages forum warns against another attempt at sabotage by Netanyahu and Ron Dermer. Okay, that's the Strategic Affairs Minister. And calls on the US administration and Trump, look at this, not to allow the Prime Minister to derail this historic initiative. So look at the pressure now that the Israeli people, the hostage forum, they're now putting this pressure on Netanyahu. Get the deal done. Netanyahu is, what's the old saying, is between a rock and a hard place. We're going to find out a lot about Benjamin Netanyahu in the coming days. You know, I used to like Netanyahu years ago, but then I queried who his loyalties really truly were to at the 2020 January, and I've spoken about this many times, when he and Trump at the White House unveiled their plans, Jared Kushner's plans for the two-state solution, for the creation of a Palestinian state alongside the Israeli state. And remember, they unveiled all that planning. And I questioned then, I said, well, you know, Netanyahu, why would he want to divide the land of Israel? Why didn't he say to Trump, no, we're not dividing the land? You know, but recently, I mean, his speech on Friday at the UN, you know, Netanyahu came out in defense of Israel. He came out strongly and boldly. He was the only person there who spoke any truth. What Netanyahu said was the truth. But now we're going to find out whether that was just a show. We're going to find out how sincere all that was. You know, as I said to you before, the deception, ladies and gentlemen, brethren, the deception is just phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. And, you know, we must be aware of these things, that there can be some incredible deceptions that go on in these world leaders. You can't trust any of them, basically. But I wanted to make that point, that Netanyahu now, we're going to see his true colours. I'm just trying to, as I'm talking to you, I'm just trying to find out. It keeps going off on the page. That's the problem I've got. And I wanted to share something else. I wanted to share the end of that report, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to, because it's very, very important what Trump is saying. And my computer is not playing ball properly with me, unfortunately. But yeah, I'll have to just go on as I am. But basically, we must understand that we're going to find out what Benjamin Netanyahu is all about. Is he going to acquiesce to Trump? Is he going to kowtow to Trump? Is he going to say, right, okay, I'll do as I'm told. I'll do as I'm told, and we're going to allow this plan to go through, this 21-point peace ceasefire deal. And, that's the path to a Palestinian state. That's the path to the dividing of the land of Israel. There we are. I've managed to recover it. This is what it says. Israeli officials have so far remained tight-lipped about the details of the proposal. Security sources, however, have expressed concern that granting amnesty to Hamas leaders and opening statehood talks for a Palestinian state under fire could strengthen the terrorist group and weaken Israel's deterrence. Netanyahu is expected to face intense pressure, this is what I've been saying for days, in his meeting with Trump, who has sought to position himself as the only figure capable of delivering both a ceasefire and a regional breakthrough. So there you have it. The pressure's on Netanyahu. And is he going to crumble? Is he part of the whole New World Order agenda? Is he so far down the line of being with Trump that he's just going to throw Israel under the bus and say, okay, everything he said on Friday doesn't matter. We'll allow a two-state solution. We'll allow the creation of a Palestinian state. We'll kiss goodbye to the annexation of our lands. And we won't annex any of our territory. And because it's Israeli territory, whether people like it or not, that land belongs to Israel. And many people don't like that truth. But at the end of the day, it belongs to the state of Israel. And there's just another article that I'm trying to find, which then shows the difficult situation that Netanyahu is in. If I can find this, yeah, here we are. This is I might be able to find this regarding from his own party. Okay, because we need to understand the balance here. Okay, we need to understand the balance here. That if Netanyahu concedes to Trump, if he gives in to Donald Trump, and he says, okay, we won't allow for annexation of our territories, okay, and we'll agree to a ceasefire. Okay, we get the hostages back, but Hamas stays there, and the Arabs and the Palestinians and the Palestinian Authority are able to gradually take over the Gaza Strip, and we have to take our military out of there. And there's going to be gradually the creation of a Palestinian state. What has Israel got from that? Okay, they've got the hostages out, but effectively they haven't destroyed Hamas. They haven't remained in Gaza to set up their own security, which is what Israel said they were going to do. And thirdly, they've conceded to a Palestinian state, which will cut up parts of East Jerusalem and the Judea and Samaria. So Israel, if they concede to this 21-point plan of Trump's, they are really basically surrendering to Donald Trump. Netanyahu would be saying, okay, we've been forced and pressured. I'm going to have to allow this to happen. And that's basically a defeat, really, for Israel. But what's happening also, and we must understand this, and this is where it is so vital to really understand what's going on, because in his own coalition government, the right side, people like Smotrich and Ben Gvir and to a lesser extent Gideon Saar, but there are others in the coalition, the right-wing coalition party in Israel, and they're saying to Netanyahu, they're pressuring Netanyahu. There's meetings been going on behind the scenes. See if I can find it here. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, look, here we go. A senior political source who spoke with leading American media hosts and editors confirmed on Saturday that Benjamin Netanyahu intends to raise the issue of sovereignty in the West Bank with US President Donald Trump, despite Trump's stated opposition to the move. Well, if Netanyahu does that, Trump is going to get angry and say, no, I've told you. Because earlier this week, as it says, and I said earlier, Trump declared, I will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. Trump isn't going to do that. Trump is not going to allow Israel to annex the West Bank. So immediately, Netanyahu's on the back foot, yeah? But he's on the back foot with his own coalition. Because his own coalition want to annex the right wing Knesset members like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. They want to annex the West Bank. So Netanyahu's political future is in the balance. This could dissolve the Israeli government. This week is going to be, you need to pay attention. This coming week is going to be huge. In terms of Bible prophecy in the end times and the possible rapture this year, it is going to be a huge few days coming up. Make no mistake about it. The report goes on. At the same time, heads of the Yasha Council, Yasha Council are traveling, this is the Israelis government, are traveling to the United States. Yeah, they're traveling there for what they described as an emergency delegation, end of quote, on the sovereignty issue. So the Knesset members, they're going there, this political party, to say to Netanyahu, don't cave in. Don't cave in. Aiming to influence policy before Netanyahu's scheduled meeting with Trump at the White House on Monday. This is unbelievable. It really is. You've got to understand the gravity of this. And this affects the timing of the rapture. That's what we're not saying is that we know there's going to be a rapture. But the timing of it is the issue. And when you see this kind of thing going on, we must pay attention. The source also attempted to outline Netanyahu's formula for ending the war. But beyond the slogan, hostages home, Hamas out, no detailed plan was presented. There was, however, a reference to Syria, and it goes on and says things like about the arrangement with Syria. Now, the other bit that I want to look at this, it says here, during a Shabbat gathering at his hotel with members of the Israeli delegation, Netanyahu said, quote, there is more work to do, but we are nearing the end, both to bring home our hostages and to defeat our enemies. Regarding future plans, he said, quote, we make peace with our neighbours while the sword is in our hand. So he's trying to say we're making peace when we're strong. Is that his way of kind of making concessions but not wanting to look like Israel's been bullied into submission? And then he said, that is what we are doing now. And this will continue next week in Washington and then in Israel. This stage of the war for justice and truth is a very important stage. What is Netanyahu going to do? The ball is in Netanyahu's court because members of his government have threatened to quit. They threatened to bring down the government. If he doesn't stand strong against Trump, there are members of the Knesset that could bring down this government, this Israeli government. And that's something I've hinted at before. Netanyahu also thanked the Israeli representatives for their efforts and addressed criticism of... I don't need to read that bit, but Trump... I'll just finish with this bit here. Trump is pressing to bring the war to an end, writing on his Truth social media account, quote, there have already been 4 days of intensive talks. Netanyahu is in the picture. Doesn't call him Bibi. Netanyahu is in the picture. Hamas is involved. And all the countries in the region are engaged. There is unprecedented enthusiasm to reach peace. That's what Trump is saying. Netanyahu, however, offered no further comment except to say that he, quote, will speak with Trump about everything at their meeting. Well, this is just phenomenal what's going on. This is just absolutely phenomenal. And I can't find it there, but there are reports, strong reports, that members of the Knesset on the right-wing side of the party of the coalition are pressuring Netanyahu to say, defy Trump. Don't do what Trump's telling you to do. Say no to Trump. Don't let him pressure you on annexation, and don't let him pressure you for stopping the war and letting Hamas survive. And don't let him pressure on you for withdrawing the IDF from the Gaza Strip. And don't let him pressure you for creating a pathway for the Palestinian state. And so there we have it. Netanyahu, he's got Trump on one side and he's got his own political party, his own coalition members on the other. And he's piggy in the middle. He's right plumb piggy in the middle. And he's like in a vice. If you remember like you were your old woodwork class or whatever it was, and you put your wood there and there are two vices that came together and squeezed the wood. And Netanyahu's that piece of wood right now. He is being squeezed and pressured like nothing you could ever imagine. And obviously, if he isn't part of the New World Order, if he is a part of this whole plan and shenanigans, we're going to find out. Because if he is, then he'll cave in quite quickly and side with Donald Trump and allow for this peace and ceasefire deal to go on and allow for the implementation of the 21-point peace plan, which includes the creation of a Palestinian state. Okay, so, but if he's true to his word, when he spoke on the UN on Friday, he came out against a two-state solution. Netanyahu was against a Palestinian state, wasn't he? He was against Hamas being let off. He said we will hunt them down and kill them. So Netanyahu, the concessions that he'll have to make would be absolutely extreme. How fast all this is going to go. Some might say, we might be thinking, well, we've seen these things before, and these political carryings on and meetings and putting deals together, they can sometimes take a long time. But what struck me and why this is so important is that Donald Trump has made it clear that he's going to press through with all of this, that they're not going to stop these meetings, they're not going to stop pushing until a deal is done. And that deal, it won't just involve the hostages coming back, it won't just involve the ceasefire, it will involve the whole package of the 21 points of peace plan, but also what else might be added on as we go on from there. Because once Israel starts conceding ground, then the pressure of the world, the pressure of the Arab leaders, the pressure by the Trump administration will just push, eventually until they agree to a two-state solution. And that's where it's headed. How long it's going to take, we don't know. But at tomorrow's meeting, we're going to find out, we're going to get some idea what happens in this meeting between Trump and Netanyahu. It will shape the rest of this year. It will shape the timing of the rapture, because it will give us an idea of how quickly they're going to implement this plan. And this peace plan will be a part of the Abraham Accords. It will give Israel the third temple. It will be the division of the land. And how quickly this will all come to pass. But as I said, what's really struck me is how determined Trump is, how single-minded Trump is to get this done, and how much concessions he's now pressuring upon Israel. And remember that, even the Greece, right? Israel have been friendly with Greece and had good relations with the Greek government for a number of years. They've got economic ties. They've got gas and oil ties with Greece and other economic ties. Even the leader of Greece came out and spoke and said to Israel at the United Nations, and actually said, if you don't change your attitude in Gaza, if you don't stop the war, if you don't stop the genocide, if you don't do this, that and the other, then you're going to lose the remaining allies you have. Remember, I think it's like over 160 of 193 delegates from different nations around the world, 160 over, I think it is, have called for the Palestinian state, have called against Israel, have turned on Israel. Israel only has a few allies left. And of course, the United States is the significant ally. But it's all by deception. It's all by design. Donald Trump is not a friend of Israel. No friend of Israel would turn around and say, right, you're not going to annex the Judea Samaria. They are the biblical heartland of Israel, and he's stopping that. Don't ever think that he is a friend of Israel. He is going to betray Israel. And now we're seeing it in motion. We're seeing it now with what he's doing. We're seeing it now with this 21-point peace plan. Trump is betraying Israel, and he's throwing Netanyahu probably under the bus, unless, of course, Netanyahu is involved in it as well. And that's something that I'm not sure about. Haven't been sure about that for a long time. What they say on the podium, what they say at the United Nations doesn't necessarily mean that that's how they're going to behave. There's a lot of things that are staged in these last days. The working of the mystery of iniquity is at work. There's a lot of deceivableness going on out there. Make no mistake about it. Look how Trump has successfully deceived most people. You have to have the Holy Spirit to see through who Trump is. But he's deceived a lot of people. And so there we have a situation where even the Greek Prime Minister turned out and said to Netanyahu, to Israel, if you don't change your policy, if you don't do things differently, if you don't stop the war, if you don't stop the killing of so-called innocent Palestinians, that's a joke, then, you're going to lose the remaining allies that you have. So even those who supported Israel are turning against Israel. And this is where it's all going. This is satanic. Those people, those world leaders that have attacked Israel at the United Nations, they're satanic. Yeah, we're living in the end times. Dark forces are here. The work of Satan, the devil, is massively in front of our eyes. How much longer can this go on? How much longer can we see this bullying of Israel? How much longer can we see this intimidation and this anti-Semitism? It's off the charts all around the world, non-stop. You're getting reports. Even yesterday there was a march in Berlin. You'd think the Germans would have learnt something, wouldn't you? 50,000 plus Germans marching anti-Semitic through Berlin yesterday. That's just one of the things that's happening. All over the world, Jews are targeted. This hatred of Israel, hatred of the Jews. Well, where does it come from? It comes from Satan. It comes from the devil. It's always been spiritual. And who now is preparing to divide the land? Who now is the one who's going to bring all this together? He's the one, the puppet master, as I've said all along, the puppet master Trump himself, who is creating all of this, who is pressuring now Netanyahu in Israel, who is bringing everything together. So there we are. I'm going to leave it there now. So it's D-Day, Rapture D-Day. By that I mean that we must look at what's going on. This meeting tomorrow is massive because it will give us an idea of the timing of the rapture. We know the rapture is going to happen, that's without question, but it's the timing of the rapture. Because remember, as I've said all along, it's about the parting of the land. It's about the signing of this peace agreement. This is what it's all about. And they're calling it a ceasefire deal about to be signed. Yeah? And it might be added to and it might be expanded. These deliberations, these meetings, these high-level gatherings, lawmakers, political leaders, governments, they are intensely working on a solution right as we speak. And so we could be very close to the unveiling of Daniel 9:27. I'm not saying we are. What I'm saying is that tomorrow's meeting and what takes place in this next week is very, very important because they're working on this peace deal. And I said all along, Trump would be at the heart of it. Trump would be behind it. And it's now a case of the ball is in Netanyahu's court. The pressure is on him like you wouldn't believe. What is Netanyahu going to do? And it could well cause the downfall of this Israeli coalition government. Depends which side he's going to take, because this is going to have massive political ramifications. So pay attention. Watch what's going on. We are still in a super high watch period because they could add to this agreement, they could formulate this peace agreement, and they could bring it out in the near future. And if they're going to bring it out in the near future, even in the month of October, it is possible, then we could see the rapture even this month in October. Okay, so I'll leave it there. I hope that the information I've shared today will be helpful and also encourage us that, this is still possible. This year is still possible for the rapture. Make no mistake about it. So let's see what happens. And I probably will come back on in the next couple of days, certainly after this meeting. But I don't know which way it's going to go. It could be a damp squib, But I just feel that Trump looks adamant this time, that now is the time. And if he's like that, then he's not going to just be, easygoing, half-hearted, give Netanyahu time and allow it to just fade into the background. I don't think he's going to do that. I don't think this will be a damp squib and nothing happen. I think something concrete is going to develop from all of this. So we shall see. Interesting times. So look up, because possibly our redemption draws even nearer than we now think. So take care for now. God bless everyone. Stay strong in the Lord. We're praying for you, brethren, and I'll hope to see you soon. Take care for now. God bless.